Hello, I'm Joe Ruggiero, and welcome to my podcast, Inspired, and the people that inspire me. Today I'll be talking to Ron Woodson, and I'd like to give you a little background into Ron because it's very interesting. Ron Woodson, principal and creative director of Ron Woodson Design, and formerly co-principal in the award-winning interior design firm Woodson and Rummerfeld. House of Design is based in Los Angeles and Lisbon, Portugal. Now, Ron has been named top 10 African American interior designers by the Black Interior Designers Network. He's also Interior Designer of the Year by the National Council of Arts and Hollywood's top 20 interior designers by Hollywood Reporter. Ron has been named to House Beautiful's top 20 designers, Metropolitan Homes' top 100 list, and Traditional Homes' new Trads and Luxe magazine's Design Gold list. California's top 50 tastemakers and influencers by Modern Interiors Angelino magazine. Ron is published author of design tome High Style by Chronicle Books, which was inducted to the list of Oprah's top design books. Wow. Ron is co-founder of Save Iconic Architecture, and a nonprofit organization based in Los Angeles dedicated to preserving noteworthy architecture. Like Richard Neutra or Robert Farquhar, the list goes on and on and on, and maybe he'll share with us his most recent adventure, which is the maintaining of Marilyn Monroe's personal home. So Ron, welcome to the podcast.
Joe, thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Now, before we get into your list of wonderful achievements, I'd like to go back to your youth because you have a really interesting background. Your parents look like they just walked out of a fashion magazine, and I remembered you posted that shot on, I think, Instagram, and I was just so interested in it. They weren't professional models?
No, they weren't professional models, but they loved fashion. My dad was a jazz musician, and my mother was a school administrator. And when they first met, they met at a jazz club on Central Avenue here in Los Angeles, and in the 50s.
Native Californians.
Native Californians. My mother was from Oakland. My dad was from Los Angeles. And before that, even, my grandfather was also a musician, but he was a classical musician.
Wow.
He played the tuba, the bass, trombone, piano. And when my dad would travel, a lot of times because he was also a studio musician, and a lot of times my mother would go with him, and I would stay with my grandparents. And I had to practice my standards on the piano. Like, I got to a point where I was like, oh, please, can I stay with my aunt, who was I called her my Auntie Mame, because she was that woman in my life. You know, she was just out there, traveled, and I just revered my aunt. And so I was like, can I just stay with Aunt Jen? And they were like, no, my grandparents wanted me with them. But they loved fashion, and hence where I got it from.
Well, you also were taken to some incredible spots. A very famous lady.
Yes. I was very fortunate as a child. I had a very interesting childhood, unlike most children and unlike even most adults. They took me everywhere and exposed me to a way of life that I probably would have never, ever been able to experience.
Now, what was the name of the famous lady that you used to run around her?
Doris Duke.
Doris Duke,
Yes,
of course.
yes.
And, I have a history with Doris Duke because we, at the time, went to Newport, Rhode Island.
Right.
And they wanted her to demolish all of the old fishermen cottages because everybody knows about the beautiful mansions in Newport. And she said, well, no, I won't do that. I'll restore them, and I will not sell them. I'll only lease them to those people who are interested and I have to interview. And these little cottages were so beautifully restored with magnificent kitchens and all the details of a restoration. And I always thought to myself, isn't that a wonderful thing that she's done for the preservation of architecture?
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's really great.
Another little known fact about Doris Duke, when my mother was pregnant with me, she really liked my father. He was in a trio that performed at a lot of her parties. And she found out my mother was pregnant with me, and she told my father, she said, after your wife has the baby, let me know what you have, and because I want to do something, get something. And she had a Christian Dior christening suit made for me. Wow. I have no idea where it is now, but
that's a collector's item.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you also have an interesting godfather.
Yes, my godfather was Bobby Short, who was one of my dad's very best friends, and again, just this interesting childhood that I had. I was a really well-mannered kid.
Isn't that wonderful? So was I.
So they would take me everywhere. I would go on rehearsals with my dad, and I would just sit and watch. I didn't run around and
well, that's maybe
make a
where you were
cause of ruckus.
inspired.
It was where I was inspired.
I want to get back to your design, because I'm a big fan of the way you put things together, the way you put rooms together. You do a wonderful mix of things, colorful. I hate to use this word because it's overused, but eclectic.
Right.
And how did you get into doing design?
Well, interesting enough, going back a little bit of history with my parents, again, because my father traveled so much, my mother and I, our thing was to rearrange the house all the time. So my dad would come home. He never knew what his house was going to look like when he came from, being on the road. And it was the same way with my bedroom. I would always rearrange my bedroom. But I never thought that it would be a career. It only became a career later in life, in my early 30s.
Well, it's interesting because as an Italian son of an Italian immigrant, I can remember my parents not wanting me to move out of the house after I had come back from the Army and I had done graduate school and everything else. And I said, well, I'll move back, but I have got to rip my room down to the studs. And I want to begin from the beginning. And my parents were like, yeah, absolutely. And I did it absolutely to the T. Little did I know I was going to be married very shortly after that, so they spent all this money, and then I moved out. But I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah. So they let me just run free.
Well, now, how is the difference? Because now you have your business, is it 6 months in Portugal and 6 months in LA?
It will be, we're still working that out, how the time frame is going to be. But Portugal came about because I love Europe.
Yes.
And always wanted to live in Europe. And it's one of those things, careful what you ask for. You may get it. And but I always thought it was going to be London. I always thought, okay, I always had an affinity for London, Savile Row and
yes,
all
too.
Things, Georgian and again, going back to my design style, just that mix of history with what's sort of new and future forward.
Right.
I love that mix. And so some time had passed, and I decided, okay, now's the time to make this change. Yeah. And I'd been going to Portugal for over 20 years. but again, never thought I would live there. And
I started going to Portugal in the 1960s to the Algarve.
You were real
Really?
pioneer.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I'm much older than you.
Yeah. Not really.
But Portugal has a mystique to it. And I can remember when my sister, who moved to California, they were working for IBM and they had an assignment in Brussels. And it was the era where you could go to 3 different cities at no extra charge. So I would go visit my girlfriend in London, and then I would go see her in Brussels, and then I would go down to Lisbon. And I just love travel. I
Right.
love travel. And you are friends with another angel in my life, and that is Robert Garcia.
Yes.
And Bob was very, very instrumental in helping me when we did The World of Design for HGTV. And he gave me several locations of friends of his. This is before he was living in Portugal.
Right.
But he really was so supportive and so helpful. And aren't these the kind of people that you meet along the way?
And again, it's those types of people that have inspired me to do what I've done. I was just at Robert's house over the summer last year, and he gave us a tour of Lisbon that I had no idea even existed.
Right.
His house, as you can well imagine, is incredible. The gardens
I
are
believe
just beautiful. Yeah. And we have another friend in common, Ed. And Ed used to be the showroom manager at Ralph Pucci here in LA. And now Ed lives full time in Lisbon as well. So that was another reason for my choosing Lisbon, because I have a whole community there
And
of great friends.
It's very much like San Francisco. It's built on 7 hills.
7 hills,
Yes.
And we're on one of the hills.
Wonderful seafood and the azulejos.
The food is incredible. And again, I think I may have chosen a different European destination had I been a little younger. But I like the slower pace of Lisbon and Portugal. And Lisbon is even a faster pace than other parts of Portugal. But I wanted to slow down a bit.
Well, I'll never forget our visit to Sintra.
Yes.
Because I had not known of it, and it was on the itinerary for our World of Design production. And at the risk of sounding like Shirley MacLaine, but I really feel that there was a vibe in Sintra.
Yes.
And it's where the kings, I guess, would vacation,
right.
and these wonderful homes.
Right.
But my wife and I celebrated one of our anniversaries there, and it's something I don't think I will ever forget. It's a magical,
very,
magical
very pretty
spot.
In fact, we were looking at a weekend house in Sintra, but Sintra has a microclimate. And in the winter, it's really damp.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really damp. In the summer, it's beautiful, but I don't know if I can handle the dampness.
Yeah, we were there in the summer.
But it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it really is.
The other thing that I love is you're by plane. You're 2 hours away from Paris, London.
Yes,
Last year I
exactly.
was there, and I went to Maison, and I got on the plane, and then I was 2 hours back to Lisbon. I was back to our apartment.
Well, it's very centrally located. It's a terrific spot. Now, I would like to really delve into what you have learned, and I have so much respect for you because I tried to be a designer, interior designer, and now I design furniture and fabrics and whatever for manufacturers, which to me is much easier because I can't put up with the foibles of my clients. I just,
Well, I'm with you there.
But how are you've been so successful?
I love my clients, but yes, I completely understand. So going back,
you don't stress.
The older I get, the less I stress, and the more particular I am in how I choose my clients. It's not just the way my client is choosing me, I'm choosing them in the same way. So if in the first 5 minutes of a design consultation, if I'm getting red flags that this isn't going to be a match,
Right.
I say thank you, but this just isn't going to
I think that's
work for us.
honest.
Yes.
I really
yes.
do.
And, I'm at a time in my life and in my career that I can do that. Years ago, when first starting out, I had to take whatever came.
Yeah.
And, but those were great learning lessons, where I learned what I would tolerate and what I wouldn't. And I'm glad I had
That's
it.
the secret.
Yes.
I can remember, and I can't mention any names because they're two famous designers. One worked for another, and she was a woman, and I'm not being sexist, but he went through her elaborate color schedule for this apartment in San Francisco. And went over it and this and that and swatches and blah, 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 and room flow, et cetera, et cetera. Well, when they got to the location in San Francisco, she had seen he had put paint chips on each of the walls, and she said, oh, no, this is all going to change. And he said to her, well, you had approved this before we left. She said, that was in Los Angeles, not in San Francisco. There's a different light here. See, I could not put up with that.
Right.
I couldn't do it. I'd be out the door. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you have wonderful patience. So I think that you were taught well.
And, again, a lot of it was self-taught, and then I went back to school. So my first degree is in finance.
Ah,
Yeah.
that always helps.
Yes, I have a business degree, and then again, I always had this creative side, but I went into corporate life at 19 years old.
Wow.
I had an economics professor who took a shine to me and got me my first corporate job at 19, and I was in corporate life until my early 20s. Yeah, 23, 24.
That's a good time to jump.
And it was just never what I wanted.
Yeah.
That was never what I sought out to do. I come from a family of entrepreneurs.
Right.
And musicians. And they always stressed that I had to have my own business.
Well, I call it fire in the belly. And I have 3 children and I have 5 grandchildren. And that's the thing I like to instill in each of them, is that you've got to love what you do.
Exactly.
And I think that separates us from perhaps some of the Europeans. And I don't want to be too specific because my son-in-law, God love him, he's French. But the French work to retire.
Right.
We in America work because we love what we're doing. And at a ripe old age that I am, I have no sense of retiring. And I can remember Julia Child, and they asked her, well, when are you going to retire? She said, there's no need to. I don't want to retire. I love what I do.
I love what I do. Right.
And I think that is so important.
And I'm glad I figured it out early enough to be able to enjoy this career. Because
Yes.
design has brought me a wonderful life. I mean, I've been
Well,
able
you're good
to
at
do I've had a fabulous time in design, and I've been in design for now a little over 30 years.
Wow.
And I've
Newcomer.
accomplished a lot in that 30 years.
Well, I think it's, that old song about you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
Right.
And I think the most important thing is that you knew when to increase it. And that's what I think is so beautiful about dealing in 2 different continents,
Yes.
in the subject and the career that you love.
Right.
And do the Portuguese Are they any different than we might be in terms of how they like to decorate their homes? Or
They are. So design, and I've learned this, and I'm not going to be the ugly American and
Please
and,
don't.
and to have it be my way or the highway. But what I've learned is the Portuguese design by committee. So design firms there, they'll design, a whole team will design for a particular project. So if it's a design studio, it's not just one or two of the principals. It's a whole committee that may design a project. And I'm still learning this. So, and this is interesting. But that's not the way that I design.
No.
So it literally is. It's my way.
well,
or
it's one
or the
vision.
highway.
It's
Yes,
one vision.
it's my vision.
And do you speak Portuguese?
I'm learning. It's very difficult.
It's a very difficult. As a
very
matter of fact,
difficult.
when I went to Portugal, because I have 5 years of Spanish,
Right.
I thought, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. But it's not Spanish.
No.
And all I came away from Portugal with was cachaça.
Well, and the dialect is very different. The Portuguese dialect
It's
is very
guttural.
different. It is.
Yeah.
Than the Brazilian Portuguese dialect.
Ah.
Yeah.
But it's similar.
Yes. But so here's a way of looking at it. It's like you said, it's a little more guttural. It's from
Right.
the throat. So like Mexican Spanish is more rhythmic and
Yes.
sing-songy, whereas Spanish and Castilian is more gruff.
And a lisp.
And yes.
Yes.
So that's the difference between Portuguese and Brazilian Portuguese.
Well, I did learn bon dia.
Yeah.
And instead of buenas tardes,
Right.
buenos dias. But I did find that to be interesting, but a wonderful attitude.
Yes.
I found them very sweet people, very kind, very helpful.
Yes.
And so I think you're in the right spot.
Well, they're very interesting in that they don't have a problem with Americans and English-speaking people. So, and you can get by. So, I was there last year for 3-4 months getting living situation together, and going out and buying furniture, temporary furniture before the container comes from the States, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna have a little bit of a problem with the language barrier. I didn't have a problem at all. Google Translate was my
yes,
friend.
of course. You didn't go to IKEA?
I didn't go to IKEA. Well, no, I take that back. I did have to go to IKEA for some necessities for the kitchen,
Right,
and
right,
that
which
kind of
is
thing.
wonderful.
Yeah, but I've gotten situated, and it flowed really easy.
Well,
and
if you're still looking, there was a wonderful vineyard for sale. It was in the Wall Street Journal this morning in Portugal, in the wine country.
In
and
the
I
Douro?
think it was 30 million.
Oh, okay. I'll take 2.
Right, exactly. Just in case you're still looking. But I think it's very interesting, and it's a wonderful spot. And I think that you're so adventuresome to try this, and I think it's going to be very successful.
Well,
for
and
you.
it's I have friends and family who some thought I was absolutely out of my mind, and others have been extremely supportive.
Well, my wife and I were born on the East Coast, raised our family in Connecticut, and when we moved to California, because at that time I got the job as editor-in-chief of Home, and my relatives thought that we had lost our minds. You'll be back, you'll return, and my wife and I are very, very happy. We like the vibes in spite of all the problems that are going on, but I think they're going on in many major
Right,
cities. So,
right.
But I think your home is where your heart is.
Right. And we're keeping a place here, and we'll still have strong ties
Yeah,
to
of
being
course.
here, and it's a plane ride away.
And your sister is still living
My
here.
sister is still here.
Yeah.
She has open invitation to come. She's retired. She has open invitation to come to Portugal and stay as long as she wants.
Well, where is design going? Where do you see it going?
Well-
Are they living smaller? Are they living larger?
It depends upon where we're talking. Here in Los Angeles, they're still living larger.
Yeah.
In Portugal, I've worked on a small project already. So if you're in Lisbon itself, obviously apartments are a lot smaller than what we're typically used to here in LA even. But if you were coming from New York City, for example, it wouldn't be a real departure.
Is there
size-wise,
a flow going on? Are we still divided in terms of a formal dining room and a living room and then maybe a family room? Or is it flowing more?
Well, because it's an old city, and a lot of the buildings have not been bastardized or messed with, thankfully. So you still have these common areas that, are centuries old.
Right.
And the apartment that we live in is an 18th century building,
Wow.
but it was redone by a famous Portuguese architect in 2018. So the interiors are all completely new.
Wow.
I actually wanted I wanted an old building and an old interior. And I don't say that this is going to be the end all for me with this one.
As a
But-
designer, it's never.
Right. But I thought this is great to start out. And you may see it. I'm gonna design it in a really special way.
Oh, good. I can't wait.
Yeah.
That sounds exciting.
It's gonna be
Well, the
interesting.
thing about designers, and I have a dear friend, I don't know if you know her, Mary Emmerling. She has lived in so many spots, and she does it because she needs a new challenge. And she
Exactly.
and the thing that's so wonderful about her is that when she sells something, they buy her furnishings down to the toothbrush and the toothpaste in the bathroom. I mean, anything that she has done. And I can remember when we sold our house in Encino, California, and a gal came through the house, and I was sitting in my office, and she said, "You live here?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I'm buying it just the way it is. Don't touch anything." And of course, she made a list of all the things that we were bringing with us.
Right.
But it was so refreshing to see someone be excited about what you had done.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've had that happen 3 times.
Well,
Yes.
that's testimony. Well, as you know, this podcast is called Inspired. I want to know what inspires you, or what has inspired you.
What inspires me is my travel. My travel has inspired my design sensibilities. It has inspired my view of the world and how I view the world. I'm so interested in other cultures and learning about how other people live.
It's the
and-
education of your eye, which
Exactly.
is the window to your soul.
And I
So-
think going back to what you'd asked me earlier about how I do this mix of eclecticism in my design, that's where it comes from. It comes
Yeah.
from all of the years of travel. I don't remember a time when I didn't have a passport
Well, you know, in the old days in England, they would go on the grand tour.
Right.
And they would buy things and collect all these things and bring them back.
Yes.
And I think that's where that eclecticism comes from, because I'm a believer of that. And, you know, I don't like to talk about the shoe peddler's own children, but in my home, we have pieces that have been given to us from family members mixed up
Yes.
with a few things that I've designed, because people come into the house, what have you designed? And I said, well, all of it, you know, but none of it.
Right, right.
So I think that that is just so charming. I'm so happy that I've gotten to meet you after all these years.
I know.
And to be continued.
Yes,
And thank you for
please.
joining us.
Thank you for having me. I've followed you for many, many years, and I'm glad to be
When you were a
sitting
little
here.
kid.
Yes. Glad to
thank-
be sitting here with you.
Thank you so
Joe.
much, and thanks to the wonderful people at the Calabasas Country Club for making this all possible.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.